Let's talk about Waifu Impact 2. Where else can you go to get in-depth reviews of janky, low-budget fanservice games that hardly anyone's heard of? Probably somewhere else, but also here. That's the type of super niche content that tens of you will no doubt love.
I sleep in a drawer.
And look, I had to check it out. The first game was one of my earliest reviews. It was a tale as old as time. You were a bikini-clad waifu who ran around an island, blasting all sorts of other bikini-clad waifus with water guns. Yep, that was pretty much it. And while I had a good time with its simple mechanics and cheeky, low-poly fanservice, I never imagined there'd be a sequel. And what's even more surprising is the developers didn't just slap a new coat of paint on the first game and call it a day. They made quite a few changes to the formula, creating a familiar but surprisingly fresh experience. Though, after doing absolutely everything in this game and completing it 100%, I definitely have some thoughts. So let's see if Waifu Impact 2 is everything you never knew you wanted in a sequel to a game you never heard of. Waifu Impact 2 was once again developed by Mitsu Game Studio and Jandu Soft for PS4, PS5, and PC, and released in November 2024. There is literally no story to speak of, so after starting the game, you're just placed on an island and pretty much left to figure things out. What's instantly apparent are the improved visuals. Your waifu has some real artistry in her design this time, and I really dig her style. The environments are all noticeably upgraded as well, both in the level design and visual variety. But don't be mistaken, this game looks like an HD up-res of a GameCube game. And instead of just 2 locations from the first game, there are now 4 sprawling islands that all have a different theme, including grasslands, snow-covered mountains, a sandy desert, and even a Halloween forest. This not only makes the adventure feel bigger, but prevents the monotony that sets in when playing in the same location for too long. As you explore the islands, you'll be hunting for gems, articles of clothing, waypoints, and waifus. Each island has 250 gems, most of which are just lying around. But some are hidden in chests, others you'll need to solve puzzles to get, and there are ghosts that you'll have to hunt for even more. There are only a few pieces of clothing on each island, but you'll need to collect multiple to unlock a new skin. Once you do, you can change the look of your waifu from the main menu. Though, there are only 2 additional skins per waifu, but since the maid costumes all have cat ears, no complaints here. Unlocking waypoints act as respawn locations when you die, and surprisingly, you'll die quite a bit, especially in the later islands. These also serve as fast travel points to let you get around fast. And lastly, and probably the most important collectible, are the additional waifus. Once they're free, you can then play as them. And this is cool because not only do they all have different designs, each one carefully crafted, but they also all have different weapons and special abilities, allowing you to really change up the gameplay, which is what will make you either love or hate this game. The game's described as a third-person shooter adventure game with role-playing elements, where you explore the waifu islands to unlock new characters and abilities. And that pretty much sums it up. As a gun-toting waifu, you can run, dash, jump, and of course, shoot. Most of your actions are on a cooldown, so you'll never have to reload your gun. Instead, you'll wait for the cooldown before you can deliver more cold, hard justice. As you kill enemies, you'll gain experience points that fill up this bar. Once full, your waifu levels up. Each time this happens, you'll get these great portraits of each waifu and the details of your new abilities. These include things like regenerating health, an active defense ability, or an ultimate ability, which can wreck your enemies, and those are all unique to each waifu. So you'll want to play as each one to level them all up. Now the gunplay feels like ass. The sound is weak and there's almost no visual feedback, like at all. I remember the first game's gunplay also feeling kinda crappy, but you were able to see the shots being fired. And since these were all water guns, I chalked it up to that. But in Waifu Impact 2, there's like nothing. Nothing that shows shots are even being fired. I've since looked up other people's gameplay and saw that there was more going on visually than in my footage. So I'm not sure if this is an issue with the PS5 version or something else. But the other and probably bigger issue are the hitboxes. It took me longer to figure this out than I want to admit, but you can only hurt enemies with headshots. Body shots, doesn't matter how perfect your aim is, do nothing. And that's no problem for an enemy that's all head, like the slimes. But the other waifus, with a head and like a whole body, well, forget about it. Now the enemy diversity is kinda like going to Utah. You can literally count all of the enemy types on one hand, starting with the slimes that can only attack up close, next to the waifus that shoot from a distance. There are those ghosts I mentioned earlier that only run from you but don't attack you. Occasional king slimes, which are sort of like bosses, and in the last stage, the slimes are replaced by bats. And that's it. So while things get tough in the last couple of islands, it has more to do with the enemies getting more spongy rather than any sort of complicated enemy strategies. A few more enemy types would go a long way. And where are the giant waifus from the first game? Yeah, it was kind of awesome fighting a towering waifu, and definitely way more entertaining than bigger slimes. So, guns, girls, and gems. What is it like to complete this game? Well, to get all of the trophies, you'll need to free all of the waifus, unlock all of the islands, and max out the level for at least one waifu. There's also a handful of other tasks, like killing a king slime, hunting a ghost, and completing a puzzle. You can actually get the platinum trophy pretty easily without doing everything. It'll take a bit more time if you want to unlock all costumes, gallery images, and level up all waifus, which of course I just had to do. Even with the extra time I spent taking care of everything, the overall experience was still only 6 hours, and I'm totally down for shorter gaming experiences, especially when I picked up the game for under $5. However, the real question is if those 6 hours were worth it. Overall, I enjoyed my time, and I think the developers are onto something with a lot of their improvements. But there are also enough things holding the game back that I know it won't be for everyone. For the positives, I appreciated the bigger, more expansive world. Having the adventure span multiple visually distinct islands was great. I also really liked the visual upgrades. The waifus all look awesome, and the world is also more vibrant with a lot more visual flourishes. These things go a long way in a game like this. There's also a lot more things to do in general, like puzzles and ghost hunting that help to break things up. The leveling system also adds an important layer to the gameplay, really making you feel the progression. On the negatives, it really comes down to combat. And for a game that has a lot of combat, that could be a problem. First, the hitboxes need to be retooled. Hitting an enemy's body should register, otherwise it feels nearly broken. The missing visuals, particularly from the guns and ultimate abilities, needs to be addressed. A lot is lost without them. And lastly is the lack of enemy variety. Adding just a few more types of enemies would do wonders for keeping the gameplay fresh. In the end, the game's only a few bucks for several hours of fun gameplay for the right person. So, now I'd love to hear from you. Have you played Waifu Impact 2? Have you ever even heard about it before? If you liked the video, hit like and of course subscribe. And if you want another super niche game, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.